In the previous video, I added Active Directory domain services in our Windows Server 2016 machine and promoted that machine to a domain controller. Uh, that is this machine, and I opened a Windows 10 and I joined this Windows 10 to our domain controller. Behind the scenes, I added another Windows Server 2016 and made some changes and joined this machine to our domain. Like this machine name is SRV2. We already joined it to domain. This is its IP address and the time zone and the update, everything is set up. Now I'm going to add a DNS server, install the service, configure forward and reverse lookup zone, and I will use SRV2 as a second server, a second DNS server that will have the root only version of our DNS. As I promised, I'm going to do all this remotely, so I'm gonna log in to the domain in administrator user. I'm gonna put the password. Now I'm logged into Windows 10. I'm going to add remote server administration tool. We can download this file from the official website of Microsoft. We can use a browser. Like in here, I have a Microsoft Edge. We can write remote server administration tool. In there we can choose, I don't have internet connectivity right now. We can use a link that's belongs to official website of Microsoft. Then in there we can find these and download these. And if we install these updates, we can access the server manager by going to start menu and typing server manager. This is a tool that we can remotely manage all the servers. This is the dashboard. It's pretty much similar to the server manager that we previously seen in Windows Server 2016, but with some differences. Like in here, you can see add other servers to manage. Here is all servers, but there's no storage services and all that. We can add other servers. It will search this Active Directory, the Active Directory of Cardon, to find all the machines. So it can find DC. I want to add this machine. We use this, or we can double click on them. I am the client machine that's using Windows 10 Pro. This is using Windows Server 2016 Data Center Evaluation version, and this is SRV2. I previously added this, and I've shown this to you. You can double click or use this arrow. I'm going to use double click on this one. Both of them are added. Now we can click OK. Now both of them will appear in all servers and their services will be listed in here. If we click on one of them, we can see that how many servers have that service. This is the storage service, and both the domain controller and the second server have it. I want to add DNS server to SRV2, so I'm going to dashboard, add the rules and features. I want to skip this page on next time. This is going to be a direct installation. Here you can see that the two servers are listed. Previously, when we were adding a rule like ADDS, we could see only one computer, but in here we can see both of them. The domain controller has the DNS server, but I want to add the service in SRV2. So I'm going to choose this one, click next. We can choose only one of them at one time. I'm going to use the DNS server, add it. I want to add DCP at the same time as well. Okay, both of them does not require restart. I click OK next. I don't need any feature in here. I click next. Here's a brief summary about DNS server. This one is a brief summary about DCP server, what it can do. You should go through all that. It does not require any restart, both of them. And I click install. This will take a while. Again, I'm repeating, I am in Windows 10 and remotely managing the two servers, the domain controller and the SRV2, as I promised. We can close this wizard and we can find the progression in here as well. The progress of installing. It's installing on srv2.cardon.com. As the installation goes on SRV2, I'm going to, it will install the DNS, after that it will install the DCP. Meanwhile, I want to go to the domain controller and add some services. I will right click on domain controller. You can find it in here as well, all servers. Both of them are listed. I can right click on domain controller and choose DNS manager. Or I can find it in tools as well, DNS manager, and I can find it in a side menu as well, like searching for DNS, or in run I can type DNS mgmt.msc. All of these will open the wizard that we can manage the DNS server, but this machine is not a server operating system, it's not running a server operating system, so we cannot use the DNS for this machine. We must use for another machine like dc.cardon.com. We must enter the fully qualified domain name and we can click OK. Now this wizard is gonna remotely configure and manage everything in domain controller. Like we can add forward lookup zone. There is already a forward lookup zone for cardon.com zone. And all the computers that we have are added here, like client, the DC itself, and the SRV2, and they are associated IP addresses, like 103 for client, 100 for itself, and 102 for server 2. I'm going to add a reverse lookup zone, so I will right click on reverse lookup zone, first left click, then right click, and choose new zone. This is a welcome page. I want it to be a primary. I want it to be writable. I want to be able to write, add or remove any record that I want in the zone. So I will make sure that the primary zone is checked and click next. I want this DNS server to be running on domain controller. I will click next. I want to add a reverse lookup zone for IP version 4. I click next. In here we will specify the network portion of our IP address. If it's 1 octet, we will put it and click next. Or in our case, it can be 3 octets as well. We will put it and then we click next. We want to allow dynamic updates. That's fine. Okay, we click next. Here's a brief summary and we click next and we are done. Now we can see that a reverse lookup zone is added in here, but we have no record that that it will point to a name. So we will add PTRs, pointer records. These records will resolve an IP address to a name. We can write here like 100. The fully qualified domain name or the host name is DC. We can click OK. Or there is another way as well. I want to change the fully qualified domain name to this and click OK. Or we can browse as well. Like I don't want to put the IP address in the fully qualified domain name, I want to browse it. They are all located in domain controller is forward lookup zone, in this zone cardon.com, and here I can find the client and SRV2. I can click OK. It will fill the IP address and the fully qualified domain name. OK. I want to add the client as well, so I will add pointer record for client. I browse again, domain control forward lookup zone, cardon.com zone, and in here I can find the client as well. Click OK and OK. Now we added a forward lookup zone and a reverse lookup zone. Both of them are primary. It means they are writable and we can add or remove any record that we want. But I want to add a secondary zone as well that will have the read-only version of our DNS server. As we can see that all the installations are done in SRV2, I'm going to add, we have to authorize the DHCP. Using this link we can authorize. I will leave it for later. I close this one. I go to dashboard, add another rule on DNS server. Sorry, I want to add another service to domain controller. I choose domain controller, click next, and I want to add DCP. I added DCP for server 2. Now it's time for a domain controller. I want to both of them to have the DCP server. It's not necessary for domain controller, but I need it for other trainings, so I added the DCP server for SRV2 as well. But I'm going to configure DCP only on domain controller. I click next. Here's a brief summary as I previously mentioned. Click next, no restart is required. I click install. I'm going to authorize the server 2. This wizard is saying that here's a description and we have to specify the administrator and the user of DCP. I want the DCP to use this credential. That's okay, and we submit it. We can use another credential as well, but we are okay with that. And close. This way, we authorize DCP server on SRV2. This installation will take a while, and then we can authorize this one as well. I want to close this and come back to our DNS. In DNS, we can add another server. Currently, we have only one server machine that we can control it using this wizard belong to DNS manager. We can click on DNS and right click and connect to a DNS server. We will specify another DNS server with SRV2. I'm going to add a fully qualified domain name with srv2.cardon.com. We click OK, and now the SRV2 is added here. We can see it's forward lookup zone. There is nothing in here. It's reverse lookup zone, nothing in here. I want to add a secondary zone for this primary zone and for this primary zone as well. So I'm going to add a forward lookup zone that will be a read-only version of cardon.com, a reverse lookup zone that will be the read-only version of this zone, a reverse lookup zone of cardon.com. So I'm going to click on forward lookup zone and then right click and new zone. We click next and choose secondary zone. We click next. We can write the name or we can browse it. It's located in cardon.com with the domain controller that we are connected to. It's forward lookup zone, and this is the zone that we are looking for. We click OK and next. Here we can specify the master DNS server. The SRV2 should look which DNS server to find this zone, the cardon.com. It must look to the domain controller to be able to find the zone. We can click here to resolve it. The validation has failed. There can be some problems like the DNS server is not configured to transfer this information to SRV2. We're going to do it later. That's why this validation fails. That's okay. We click next. This validation can be failed because of some other problems as well, like we don't have any connectivity. But it's not in our case. We have connectivity, but we are going to permit it to allow it to send all those information to SRV2. We click finish, and now we have a zone that the zone is not loaded. We're going to transfer it. To transfer it, we go to forward lookup zone. In here, this zone. We are going to right click and go to properties. In here we can find the tab zone transfer. We can allow zone transfer. We can specify to any server which is not very secure, but in our case it's okay. Or we can specify the servers only to the following servers, and we can edit. And in here we can specify to which server we want to transfer this information. And in here we can specify the SRV2 IP address, which has the host IP address of 102. We can resolve it, it will be validated. There is a host IP address for this one, but I don't know why it's not validating this. The server with this IP address is not authoritative. It's saying that the DC, the domain controller itself, is an authoritative, and this is SRV2 is not. That's okay. We can apply and okay. Now it's still not loaded. We can force it to send it right now. It's not sent it till now. By right clicking and choosing the send from master, we can refresh and right click and transfer from master. Now if we refresh it, all the records will come in here. The refresh is taking a while. It depends on the computer that we are using. The refreshing is not done till yet because this button is great, this icon. There's the refresh icon. We can find it in here as well by right clicking on cardano.com, and in there we can find the refresh as well. Here it is. I want to take it some time, give it some time. It didn't load. We can use transfer new copy of zone from master and then refresh. And here are the records. This upper refresh is used when we want to transfer all the information, and this one is when there are some new records, some new copies. We want to use this one. So now this zone is a secondary zone of this primary zone. I want to add a secondary zone for reverse lookup zone. There's no secondary or primary zone of any reverse lookup zone. We can right click and go, choose new zone. We click next, we choose secondary zone, click next. It's an IP version 4. We can specify our network portion in here. We click next, and we want to specify the master DNS, which is the domain controller. Its IP address is 192.168.1.100. We can resolve it. It's not validated. That's okay. Click next and finish. Now we want the reverse lookup zone on a domain controller to send this information to SRV2. We are remotely managing both of them. We right click on the reverse lookup zone, go to properties, we choose zone transfer. Here we want to allow zone transfer to these following servers, and in here we specify the IP address of SRV2. with 102. The same arrow was saying that that's not authoritative for this required zone. That's okay. We click OK and OK. If we come back here and transfer new copy of zone from master and refresh it, we can see all the records in here. These are read-only records, and we don't have the option to delete them. But if we come in here, in here we have the option to delete them. These two are the read-only copy of 3 cars that are located in here. This one and this one. This was all about the DNS server, and there are a lot more to discover, but this training time is a lot less and does not let us to completely say everything with details about DNS server.